Good morning. Oh, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's good to see you all here this morning at 11:11, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with a couple of announcements as some folks come in, because we have a full morning with some great music and some special stuff happening today. First of all, I want you to make sure you register your attendance, and you'll bring that forward when we do our offering. You'll notice some stuff on the back of the bulletin that is happening, and I want to make sure that you're aware of that. If you're visiting with us for the first time as well, I want to make sure that you're aware of some of the things that are going on here, and then want you to make sure you stop by the booth at the back and get a free CD from the band's music. We always like to pass that music along. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, this afternoon in the sanctuary, the church is meeting for a presentation by our building committee and by our foundation and trustees. They're presenting a vision for what this church is going to be doing in the next 5 to 10 years, especially because in the next 2 years, the downtown area is set to explode in growth and literally increase a 50% increase in population over the next 18 months to 24 months, literally that kind of growth. And it'll be happening all around this church, which is the second largest property owners, real estate property ownership, whatever, in downtown. So we're poised to be in a very significant place as a church. I mean, not just as a church, but as a progressive voice in the community. And literally, it will be moving around us. It'll be growing around us. So there's a fascinating vision for what's going to be happening, as well as a really amazing structural plan for this church. So I hope you can be there. It'll be in the sanctuary. It'll be at 2 o'clock. Go get some lunch, and then come back and join us for that discussion and presentation in the sanctuary. There's still a few spaces left in the Sacred Spaces Tour of Ireland. We still have about 8 spaces left for that. If you're interested in that, there's some information over here, as well as online on the website. I think that's everything. Am I forgetting anything? Can we think of anything else? No? Okay. Well, it's so good to have you all here. Let's begin.
Some only want some shelter, some want a mansion in the sky. Some want 1,000 virgins, some move matter with their mind. When all the worlds collide, to divide, it's easy if their faces to hate the other side, and the others caught between are the only ones to be, are the only ones they leave behind, can only sit and cry. Dear God, dear soul, dear Mary, Muhammad, we all just get along. All just get along. Dear heart, dear life, dear soldier, dear martyr, where did we go wrong? Can we all just get along? Some set afire to crosses, some fight to ride the bus they choose. Some don't believe it all, but do anything to make the news. And when all the worlds collide, all we know is to divide. It's easy to face to hate the other side, and the others caught between are the only ones to lead, and the ones they leave behind can only sit and cry. dear God, dear soul, dear Mary, my Harmon. Can we all just get along? Can we all just get along? Dear heart, dear life, dear soldier, dear martyr, where did we go wrong? Can we all just get along? Maybe if we work together, we'd already have a heaven here on earth. Dear God, dear soul, dear Mary, my heart, can we all just get along? Can we all just get along? Dear heart, dear life, dear soldier, dear martyr, where did we go wrong? Can we all just get along? Dear God, dear soul, dear Mary, my heart, can we all just get along? Can we all just get along? Dear heart, dear life, dear soldier, dear martyr, where did we go wrong? Can we all just get along? Can we all just get along?
In this time and in this space, we come to welcome one another, but also to welcome the one who brings us together. As the question has been asked, why can't we all just get along? Why is it that we build walls instead of tearing and breaking down barriers? We come into this place facing our fears, but we do not let those fears consume us. So may we pray. Oh, Holy One, it has been another week, it seems, of fear, of hateful rhetoric, of setting one person against the other. Sometimes we don't know where to turn and we don't know who to turn to. But when we come to this place and this space, we recognize that we are a community brought together by one who is greater, one that offers a peace in the midst of our fears. And so how it is, oh God, we come as a community and as individuals, not motivated by fear, not always being scared of what is around the corner, but how is it that we open our hearts and minds so that we might see one another face to face. We might see that each of us have a story, and may we see that we are here for one another, not just though within these walls, but especially outside of it. So come and may your presence be known, not just in this room, but deep within the places of our soul. And may we go forth in a while, carrying that same spirit with us and sharing it with those that we meet. Come and be with us now. Amen. If all of you would bring your registration and your offering forward and drop it in the basket, and the jar is back.
Oh, yeah.
Audible. I'm calling an audible. I forgot to mention this to you, DeAndrea, but I had told Brad about this at, midnight last night. So I had thought our crowd's a little bit down, so we're going to have to tighten up a little bit because we're going to dance. Listen, I know that the folks that aren't here because they heard word of that. I just thought of this last night at midnight. But here's what I was in Taos this past week, and of course I was by myself. Linda was in Germany, and I love having that background music as I'm talking. That's awesome. And so as I was in Taos, we didn't have anything to do at night during the day. I skied one day, etc. But I went one night because I went to these open mic nights. One night I went to a poetry night. Another night I just went by myself to one of the local sort of bars that's right down the street. And now a lot of people go to bars for connection, right? I mean, a lot of people go to bars for any number of reasons. But what happened was really fun. As people, the music was playing, and it was country music, and they got up and they started, what happened to the music? And they started dancing, but they were doing kicker dancing, right? They were doing some kind of line dancing, and all of a sudden I just noticed how much fun everybody was having together. I got right into it, and I started doing that too. And then as I got to know a couple of people dancing with me, they said, you seem to have fun. I said, we do this a lot of times on Sunday morning at church. And he looked at me and he says, without beer? And I said, yeah, it's like we just let go of stuff and we just get together because it's all about dancing into our fears and dancing as community. That's how it works, I think. So let's all stand up. I'll figure out a place and time in a minute when you can bring your offering down here. But for now, let's make a circle the best you can. We'll find a circle here in the middle. I'd suggest put your arms around the shoulders and we're gonna have a little big fat Greek wedding moment here. We're gonna grapevine to the right. We're singing that song, Shalom Kavadim, Shalom Kavadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. And when we say God's peace be with you, we just turn to someone, smile and bow, or touch their foreheads, or whatever seems appropriate there. And then we jump back and we'll do it the opposite direction. We'll start really slow at first. Here we go. To the right. Shalom Havadim, Shalom Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. To the left. Shalom Havadim, Shalom Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. A little bit faster now, to the right. Shalom. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom. Now take one another's hands like this to the left. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom. Okay, EMSs are on site. We are moving faster. To the right. All right? Put a little bounce in it. See if you don't feel a little bit of joy. Here we go. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. To the left. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. One more time, a little faster. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom. Last time to the left. Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Havadim, Shalom, Shalom. God's peace be with you, God's peace be with you, Shalom, Shalom. Nice, huh? I felt like one of those line dance callers. Don't sit down while the music keeps playing. Say hello to one another. Greet one another with signs of peace.
Morning. My name is Tamara Lindsay. This is my partner, Don Reynolds. And we're here to talk to you about this wonderful church. And I'm going to try not to tear up and bawl and squall while I'm up here in front of you. And even though I've only been a member since this summer, I love this church. Oh, my goodness. It's such a gift to me. Every Sunday morning, I'm so excited to come to church. I haven't felt that in a long time, and after we retired here, I was kind of afraid I'd never feel that way about a church here. And then we came here one Sunday, and look at all this. Look at all this. Richard Rohr tells us that we respond to the energy all around us. And look at the energy. Look what just happened here. We danced this morning. We danced together as a community of people who are believers and come together regularly because we want to be here in this space to experience all this energy. And one way for me to respond to this wondrous energy is to give. And to give freely, a free will gift on a regular basis and an ongoing basis. Walter Brueggemann tells us and uses the term prophetic ministry. And I believe that gives me the choice to be here, to be part of the prophetic ministry for everyone here. It's not just the role of those who are ordained ministers. It's all of us. We need to all be here to respond with our energy, to respond with our love, and to respond with our free will giving. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as Tamara said, we joined First United Methodist and 1111 last summer, and it has been and continues to be an extraordinary blessing in our lives. The friendships, the messages, the music, our Veritas class, the conversations, the love that we have experienced in this community are gifts that moved us to want to share with other people. This is what prompts us to respond by making a financial commitment to support the work of this loving faith community. We'd like to leave you with 3 insightful quotations that we came across as we were preparing our thoughts about church membership and stewardship for this presentation.
Oh, y'all, I just have to add, it was so much fun to get ready for this. We spent way too much time for this 1-minute little thing, but it was so much fun sitting in the parlor going, oh, do you love this? And Don would say, oh, no, that's way too, oh, no, you can't say that, Tamara. So anyway, we have loved these quotes, and thank you for listening to us.
This is from Ashley Clayton. When we pledge, we join our hearts and hands with other believers all across the world to do God's work. We become part of something much larger than ourselves. In Luke 12, Jesus says that a man is not defined by his possessions. Pledging is a practice that will help us live that way. It's a response to God's grace.
It seems to me that in joining a church, you leave home and hometown to join a larger world. The whole world is your neighborhood and all who dwell therein. Black, white, yellow, red, stuffed and starving, smart and stupid, mighty and lowly, criminal and self-respecting, American or Russian, all become your sisters and brothers in the new family formed in Jesus. By joining a church, you declare your individuality in the most radical way in order to affirm community on the widest possible scale. William Sloane Coffin.
This is from Janet Chismere. The church belongs to each of us, and we pledge to fund its daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and for others, now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to invite you to sing this with us as you're seated. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, we'll know we're there. We will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, we know we will. It may be hard, we know, and the road may be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Let's sing it one more time. Here we go. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We'll know we're there. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Maybe hard, we know, and the road may be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. All right. Sing with us again. It may be hard, we know, and the road may be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will.
In this Kairos time, we honor pausing. We honor time in between what has been and what will be. And so if you'd like to, just relax together, close your eyes, get comfortable in your seat. Feel the rhythm of your breathing. I'll give you time for that. I love to think about that breathing as one of the things we do together. In this quiet time today, I also am asking, what about getting along? And so I wonder if quiet is part of getting along sometimes. Sometimes we just need to stay quiet. And so maybe this time of practicing quiet will be useful to us in the days to come when the heat of disagreement is on. Maybe we can ask again, would quiet be useful now? May we find peace. Amen.
Morning. Today's reading comes from Matthew 5, 1 and 2. Thank you. 9 and 12. When Jesus saw his ministry drawing huge crowds, he climbed a hillside. Those who were apprenticed to him, the committed, climbed with him. Arriving at a quiet place, he sat down and taught his climbing companions. This is what he said. You are blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete and fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. You are blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Not only that, count yourself blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you or discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort, and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even. For though they don't like it, I do. All of heaven applauds, and know that you're in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into that kind of trouble.
I love that version of the Bible, the Message, by Eugene Peterson. It's I think a little more digestible and palatable than perhaps the New Revised Standard that says essentially, "Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you for my name's sake. For such were the prophets before you." That seemed always a little bit harder to fathom. You know, this idea of you're going to be blessed. People are going to beat you up. It's going to be good. They might throw some rocks at you. It's a good thing. They killed the prophets before you. You're in good company. And while that may be true, I think it misses the point. And this morning we're finishing up this whole series on the Beatitudes as an art of being, a way of being in the world. And it's been fun for me. It was a last-minute thing with the deaths of my mother and mother-in-law, and within 2 weeks of each other in January, I sort of changed the direction of where my mind was, and the Beatitudes seemed to speak to that for some reason. And so it's been a great journey for me. And the past couple of weeks, in between, I've actually been getting a few emails here and there from people just having some comments, which has been fun to see the ways in which people are working with some of these ideas. New way of thinking of these Beatitudes is actually something quite accessible, not some sort of perfection in the Netherland and the kingdom to come, but a reality right now and here, a way of being now, here and now. And this past week, I gave you this suggestion of going out and trying some prefigurative intervention, I called it, which was basically doing things as if the kingdom of God were present, as if we were already living in that context of humility and peace and mercy and meekness, to actually sort of just live out of that as opposed to sort of hoping you can make a change, just literally being that change. And some people emailed me back and had done some random acts of kindness kinds of things, which were really interesting, and one of which sparked an idea. Some folks bought some coffee, and someone was in line at a Jack in the Box and paid for the meal behind them. I mean, there were several of those kind of things, which I thought were really wonderful, and just kind of spreading some joy. Somebody suggested they were putting money in meters, and it reminded me of something in parking meters, and it reminded me of something that a group had done last year, and I forget what their name is. They're an improvisational kind of group, but I forget their name. But I read about it in Yes Magazine, which I talked about last week. What they had done was actually gone and just put enough quarters in enough meters blocked together to own that space for a period of time, and then threw a public party just in that space, because that was their space. They paid for all the parking spaces. And that made me think of, what would it be like if we took Post-it notes, and a bunch of us just did this, and say we went over to the prison or to the courthouse area where there's a lot of tension, right? I mean, even if you're just there to pay your title and registration, it's a pain to go there. But if you're dealing with other stuff or legal stuff, I mean, just a very difficult, depressing, stressful environment. What if we just went around with little Post-it notes that said, "Be the change"? Be the change you want to see, and then put that on there, and then put about 2 hours worth in all of those meters, and just put that little Post-it note there. What would that say? What would that do? Yeah, I mean, just taking opportunities to prefiguratively live as if, and start to live as if the change is already happening. I think that's what the Beatitudes are all about. And today I think we have in particular this challenge of being peacemakers, which seems a little bit contrary to where we are in our culture right now. The reality is that peace seems unreachable. And I want to ask you, if you take just a second to think to yourself, what is actually peace? What does peace mean? Because it occurred to me as I'm looking at these Beatitudes, and I'm thinking about mercy, and I'm thinking about humility, and I'm thinking about meekness, and thinking about peace. These are all sorts of words we banter around forever. We've been talking about peace forever. We talk about humility. All these are words we sort of toss around as if, yeah, we know what they mean, but really, what does peace mean? What do you think it means? So it's not rhetorical. Throw out a couple of things. I won't grade you. No more war? Okay. Okay, so there's a difference. Peace is different in different situations. There's world peace, there's personal peace, okay? Yeah?
Steve Martin's SNL soliloquy on the 5 things he would wish us to see, one of which starts with world peace, and then it gets downgraded. He has other
So we're going to have to go check that reference out now. We're going to have to go listen to that. Okay, Steve Martin on SNL, world peace. Okay, we'll check that out. That's a delayed answer, so to speak. Okay, what else? Anything, other things about peace? Mutual understanding, what? Peace of mind. Okay. Let's get what that feels like, maybe a little more about what that feels like. What does peace feel like then? Yeah. Calm, serene. Okay. No conflicts. So that's pretty much generally the way we think about peace. We think about peace as the absence of stuff. We think about peace as the absence of conflict or the absence of war or the absence of stress or struggling, and that results then in what we say would be calm, which I think is common for us, and I think maybe that's our problem, because I think peace is already here. We're not tapping into it. We're not acknowledging it. We're not being a part of it. When Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see the kingdom," he said later, don't look for signs of the kingdom. The kingdom is in your midst. There's this difficulty with our way of thinking that always puts things beyond our reach, that always sees things as apart from us, so we have to strive to make things happen. And it's a part of our natural makeup, our biological makeup, to do that. And because fear is also an integral part of who we are, it's a part of our biological makeup, then we oftentimes tend to respond out of that first. As I'm thinking about this, I want to just mention for just a second that there's a lot to be afraid of, right? There's plenty to be afraid of. We've got lots of things to be afraid of. There's lots to be stressed about. Families, suffering, dying, losing loved ones, job security, pain. There's lots to be afraid of, right? But that's not how our brain was designed. Our brain was designed biologically to be afraid of wild animals. Yeah, I was thinking tigers. Saber-toothed tigers. Thank you. Our brain was designed to be afraid of saber-toothed tigers. I mean, that's how our brain was designed. Our brain is literally designed with these specific chemicals to react to specific emergencies, which is why someone can, like Dwayne, can jump out of a plane and parachute without any anxiety. That's not true? You still have some? You'll hang on a kite at several thousand feet up in the air. I know that. So even though there is fear, there's some kind of confidence in response to that. Your adrenaline is going, but your cortisol is not. And that's what's important, because it's the cortisol in our brain that kicks in for specific reactionary kinds of things. The problem is that when we're always stressed, guess what that cortisol is doing? It's always kicking in. So it's literally flooding our brain with the wrong stuff, right? Which is why you hear doctors talking about how stress literally can kill us. I mean, quite literally, the culture we live in, fear is killing us. It's kind of a hard thing to get my brain around sometimes. But the fact that it's doing that, I think, is partly because, once again, we're not seeing what is really there present with us. And this idea that Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall see the kingdom. Blessed are those who mourn, they shall be comforted." It's not a karmic kind of thing. It's not a cause and effect kind of thing. It's simply a reality that we somehow have difficulty getting in touch with. When I was in college, I went to a dentist. I had to have 5 teeth extracted at the same time. I was 21 years old, and I went to a dentist that wasn't my family dentist. And I went in, and I remember he sat me in the chair when he was a young guy, and he had young, assistants there with him and stuff, and they were all college students. And he looked at me, and there was a bright light shining. I'm in this vinyl chair, with all the instruments and tools and stuff. And he said, "So before I begin, I've got to ask you, does having a bright light shining on your face and having the sound of high, shrill drills beside you and people looking around you like they might have to hold you down at some point, and then these instruments of extraction, does that create any anxiety for you?" And I knew what he was getting at, and I said, "I'll take the nitrous oxide." And when he put it to my face, he says, "Just breathe." I went, and I took in as deep a breath as fast as I could. And within just an instant, I was talking to Buddha and Jesus and Abraham Lincoln. And here's the interesting thing, of course, is I had no idea what was going on at that point. I clearly did not just relax. I kind of just went overboard with the whole thing. But I had this wonderful experience, right? I had started hearing Abraham Lincoln was telling jokes to Jesus, and they were all laughing, and I started laughing with the laughter, and that just created more laughter. And afterwards, they told me I was the most entertaining patient they have ever had. Because apparently I had my hands flailing, I was laughing and bouncing my belly up and down, and while I would suggest to you that is the wrong thing to do, because addictive personalities, addictive culture is a part of our reality, is a part of our typical way of trying to deal with stress. So I don't want to be suggestive of that in any way, but it was an eye-opener for me. How do we actually get to a place of deep calm? How do we get to a place of comfort? How do we practice that kind of peace with others? And I want to suggest a couple of quick things. The Peace Corps was started on one principle: understanding. It was started in 1961, just some years after World War II. Some years after the Korean War. But it was started with the notion that young adults need to experience understanding with other cultures, and they need to experience understanding with America. And then the context, of course, was to provide learning, to provide training, to empower the communities to deal with their own issues, right, to have the resources. And so they had those 3 goals: empower the community, and then understand that community, and help them understand us. But the key thing was understanding. Now, if you look up the word peace in the dictionary, the first word you'll see is absence of conflict. And if you keep digging a little bit further, you'll see a few other things like calm, some of the things that we defined in here. If you go to the etymology of the word, which I love doing word studies, you get back to some of its earlier understanding, and you see words like harmony, reconciliation, balance are part of the root words of peace. If you look at the same studies behind the word understanding, it means to bring together. It means to be in the midst of. So you have reconciliation, which is to bring together. You have understanding, which is to stand in the midst of. And what I think we are being invited to do with the Beatitudes is literally to stand in the midst of life as a bridge. And by being open, we begin to understand. We had this wonderful experience in our staff meeting a week ago. It was we had a staff retreat here with staff and lay people in this room, about 50 of us, and the consultant did this one activity towards the end of our deal called Appreciative Inquiry. Has anyone ever done Appreciative Inquiry in your businesses or groups? It's astonishing to me that people don't do this on a regular basis. It's just completely amazing to me. But the basic concept of Appreciative Inquiry is that you do your planning, you do your strategic work with one another through the process of understanding, through the process of discovering about each other. Not through sort of a hierarchical decision-making process, but through dialogue. So Appreciative Inquiry begins with stories and sharing stories, but particularly you're paired up with people who might be strangers to you, because that's where we begin to understand our common ground as opposed to our differences. Right? We start at our common. I had this personal experience years ago in the International Association of Hemophilia Camps, because I used to perform with them for years every summer at these children's hemophilia camps. And so this international group met out in Phoenix, Arizona, and the speaker there had us do the same thing, but he had it much more black and white, much more concrete and intense. We all lined up on the survey. We all would check off where we were along these hot button issues: abortion, pro-life, capital punishment, gun rights, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all these different issues that are hot buttons for most people, right? They are divisive from the get-go. And then we went and we checked off where we were. Most of us were sort of to the right and to the left. Some of us were all the way to the right and to the left. Then he had all 200 of us get up and he says, I want you to walk around and find somebody. And he said, but I want you to find somebody who is completely opposite you. So don't line up with somebody who's going to think like you. Line up with somebody who thinks completely opposite you. Boy, was that uncomfortable. And so there was this guy. I clearly remembered him from my days of hunting with my uncle. I mean, he was, if I had labeled and stereotyped anybody, I had labeled and stereotyped him. He was as redneck as they come, and he had the boots, he had the whole get-up. He looked at me, because he'd heard me sing earlier, and he says, oh, well, what the hell? And so he resigned. Literally, he kind of resigned himself to just sit down with me. And then we sat down, and I want to tell you, it was the most transformative experience I have ever had in my life. And I think it was for him too. Yeah, we had to get past the initial stuff. Here's why I think gun control is important. And then he said, here's why I think rights to arms is important. And it was extreme. But we didn't argue. We just said our point. And then we asked questions if we needed clarification. Then we moved from that into where did we first experience this kind of thing? And he was telling stories about hunting. And then I started telling stories about hunting. And then we went a little bit deeper to talk about the characters in our stories. And then he told me stories about an uncle that he had missed that had been very influential in his life. And then I started telling him stories about my uncle. And before we know it, we were almost in tears with each other because we had shared realities. If we could get to that place with everyone that we thought we were enemies with, we would find out we have far more in common. And that's what I think peacemaking is about. I think it's trying to get us to that place where we recognize before we even have the chance to do it that we are already together. I'm going to skip on here to this last point because I brought this along and I wanted to use it. And then I'm going to invite the band to come on up because I know that we're going to be doing a song in just a minute. Well, actually, what we can do is we'll do... Yeah, you have to get. So do you have time to play it now or do you need to get? Okay, we can do it now. All right, so we're going to interrupt my sermon for just a moment so they can do the sermon, and then we'll end. Because Doxie has to leave quick. And I think she has a cello solo in the middle of it. No, okay.
the people in your life who criticize with words that hurt you. It's a so-called friend that doesn't hear your cries when dreams desert you. The person in this world you most despise, a smile could save him. Once calm, he looked into his killer's eyes, and he forgave him. Oh, it's time to change our attitudes, to learn how to forgive. Turn each complaint to gratitude, and let the Spirit live. Forget the things that money buys, forget the latest fashion. It's time to look into each other's eyes and feel compassion. It's time to look into each other's eyes and feel compassion.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. So we'll close with this thought here. Next week we'll do the ukulele. We'll bring out the ukulele next week. But I'll give you a little bit of a foreshadowing to that. One of the things that struck me, I fell in love with Israel Kamaka Wiwole, who, and most of you all know, is the composer of the medley, Somewhere Over the Rainbow with What a Wonderful World. But the story behind why he did that is pretty fascinating. It's if you know he died 7 years ago thereabouts. He was morbidly obese. He had obese issues and health issues from childhood. He had so many what you would consider really painful, difficult health issues, and yet the man somehow found brilliance in life, found joy in life, lived for his connection to his community and to Hawaii, to the environment. When he put this song together, the reason why he did it, he said, was because it represents life as it is and life as we think it should be. It represents fear, and it represents living as if. When you really think about the lyrics, Judy Garland singing that song and Wizard of Oz, it's such an angst-filled song, right? I mean, we love it, and yet it represents some of our deepest sadnesses, our deepest longings, our deepest hopeful remedies to all the pain and suffering. And yet, the answer seems to be, if we can just get away from it, then it'll be okay. If I could just get over the rainbow, if I could just get to that place where troubles melt like lemon drops, it would all be just fine. You know, I've heard about it in lullabies. I've read about it in the Bible. You know, we understand that pain. And yet then matches that right with this beautiful song about what a wonderful world we live in. And you want to go, what world do you live in? Really? And he says, yeah, look at the trees. Look at the sky. Look at the people and all the colors in their faces as they're passing by. Colors of the rainbow. He says when people greet one another, they're not just saying hi. We've talked about in here, they're wearing the sign that says, love me. They're shaking hands that say, I love you. They're living as if. And then, of course, it ends with the recognition that we have no idea the brilliance, the change, the hope that the children will bring. But we live as if. It's such a profound statement of faith that I had not seen it until this last week as I was thinking through this. How do we live in the presence of divisiveness? Well, you can't resist it because, as the old saying goes, what you resist will still persist. What we do is we make friends with it. We have to sit with the things that are uncomfortable. We have to be willing to recognize that in the midst of that pain, we are never alone. We are always in the presence of the holy. We are always in the presence of God. We are always in the presence of the ground of being, which is why once we begin to see that in one another's faces, we begin to break down the very fears that are driving all of us. But we have to be willing to sit with it for a while and to be friends with it. You never run from fear. You just make friends with it and find at the heart of all of that is this love of God. Let's all stand for a blessing. Yeah. Oh. Okay, do you want to say it right quick, then?
Okay.
Right now, just real quickly?
Right.
Yeah.
Next Sunday, 3 to 5, there's something called Healing the Heart of Democracy. To be in this room. And it's about sitting with differences and all of us together learning to listen better.
Mm-hmm. It's a great. It's
there's
Parker
brochures.
Palmer developed this, and it's wonderful. So I hope you can be a part of that. And then before we close with blessing and sing, we must be the change. I invite any of you who feel the spark of curiosity and interest to come see me afterwards and say, let's go put some stick-it notes on some parking meters and start just messing with people. You know, be a little hope in the world. Let's pray. Holy One, as we leave this place, bless us. We are grateful for community. We are grateful for a hopeful community. We are grateful for the reality that life is peace, that at the heart of all life you are present and you offer this peace. May we sit with those anxieties. May we find that moment of silence. May we find that courage to simply be friends with the things that are uncomfortable, that we might find what really brings us together, what really connects us in your deep love, in your deep presence. We pray this in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen.
Here we go. Come on.
The darkness cannot
Tribe of darkness, tell every tribe, woman and man, only light can drive out darkness, only light can, only light can. Hate cannot drive out hate, tell every child, woman and man, only love can drive out hate, only love can, only love can. We must be the change we want to see. We must be the change. And we must be the change we want to see. We must be the change.
Check what two. Something happening here. Oh, what it is ain't exactly clear. Oh, there's a man with a gun over there. He's telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Bad lines being drawn. Well, nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds. They're getting so much resistance from behind. Think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 8,000 people in the street, singing songs and a care inside. They mostly say, hooray for our side. I know it's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. You step out of line, the man comes and he takes you away. Think it's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Yeah, yeah.
What's that sound? Everybody look what's going
Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you very kindly.